Hello, my name is Peter Parfit. Welcome to the new Brit workshop. Now, I hope by now people realise just how useful the Parf Guide system is for creating a near perfect array of 20mm holes for bench tops, for replacement MFT3 tops and custom track saw cutting stations. Now, in the very early days, probably 2 or 3 years ago, I had said that, oh yes, of course, you can use a circular saw rather than a track saw on your cutting station. And I don't think I've demonstrated it. And so this video is going to show you how to take advantage of the really accurate layout of 20mm holes that you've created with your Parf Guide system when you don't have a track saw, when you've got just an ordinary circular saw and a straight edge. Now, my straight edge material, I've actually had and have been using it for a straight edge since 1978. Now, you do the arithmetic, it's a long time. And it consists of a U-shaped piece of aluminium. And because of that U shape, it's fairly stiff and it's always been pretty straight. Now, for the purpose of this video, I've actually enhanced it slightly, because now we're in the era of the Parf Superdogs and also the UJK Rail Clips. And what I've done is I've put a wooden insert in here, and you may just be able to see that there's a slight recess just here. Now, in order to get the UJK Rail Clip to fit in here, I've had to saw off one edge here, so that on one side there's no flange, and on the other side the flange is underneath a recess in this piece of wood, so it's held in place. But the reason for that was the thickness of my piece of aluminium just here. I had to get that over enough. So there we go, there's my straight edge, but it doesn't have to have fancy bits and pieces added to it. It can be just an ordinary piece of wood, which is straight, or a piece of metal, which is straight, as long as it is straight. And the idea is that you set up your 2 Parf Superdogs on your workbench in the normal way, and I've got a third one here which gives me the ability to push my piece of work up against those 2. And then the straight edge pushes against these 2 Superdogs, and that then allows you to do a right angle cut here because of the right angle relationship between that column and that row of dogs, like so. Now, I've added the UJK Rail Clips to this, and that now allows me to put that on there like so, and now that is held nicely up against those 2 Parf Superdogs. Now, I'm going to make a cut in this piece of wood, and I'm going to put an arbitrary line just here. And so I now need to set my saw up to do the cut. Now, I've now introduced 2 pieces of rubbish wood which are there just to support the saw and also the bottom end of the straight edge. It's this piece and this piece. This is the piece we're going to cut. There's my pencil line. So I'm now going to introduce the saw to the equation, and the idea is that the edge here of the saw will run against this edge of the straight edge. And this is exactly how I used to use my old circular saw before I even dreamt up the idea of the Parf Guide system. And in those days I used to clamp my straight edge to the workpiece. So anyway, there we go. We've got the saw now introduced. Now, on most circular saws, there will be some form of marking which will show you where the blade is. And it's quite clear to me that that's where my cuts are going to take place. I can't rely on this one because it's not particularly accurate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a cut, and then I'm going to measure from the edge of the straight edge to the cut line. Now, because this is that one important cut, I've now clamped my workpiece in place. And my guide rail's held nicely because of my modified rail clips, which I've got here. So I'm going to make this first cut, and then before I release anything, I'm going to check that distance from the straight edge to the cut line. Now remember that this is a circular saw, And this cut is going to be a plunge cut because circular saws rely on the blade already being in position at the set depth at the start of the cut. So we've got to move the blade guard out of the way and then lower the saw down onto the workpiece. That way we won't get kickback. So I'm going to start my extractor. I'm moving the blade away and then starting the saw, and I'm going to gently lower it down. And there's that first cut. Now I was using these two pieces of wood to support the saw during that process. And I'm going to measure that now, and that is 37 millimeters. And that's something I'm going to remember in future. So when I want to set up a cut, I know that the distance from the edge of the guide rail to the edge of the cut is 37 millimeters. Now I need to check to see if it's nice and square. I hope you can see that that is nice and square. Well, I hope this really short video will help you understand that if you've created a custom track saw cutting station or a custom bench top or whatever with the Parf Guide system, you don't actually need to have a track saw. You can have a normal circular saw, a straight edge, and then you can do your very accurate cuts time and time again with just a little bit of care as you do that plunge cut with the circular saw. Thank you very much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.